Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast, Rise and Tell with Sheekha. I am your host, Sheekha Singh. Today, I had a wonderful experience of interviewing Tommy Kilpatrick. Tommy talks about credit card debt, alleged credit card debt, and you'll know exactly what that is here shortly. Tommy's approach to dealing with bank-issued alleged credit card debt is by challenging its legitimacy by sending a letter to the bank. He believes that bank-issued credit card debt can be categorized as alleged debt, meaning he suggests that it is legally disputable or even unenforceable if it's handled correctly. He goes through a list of steps or like a checklist that one has to follow in order to get rid of the credit card debt. He's done it, which is why he's talking about it. Welcome to our show, Tommy. Happy to have you on our show.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm excited.
Yeah, same here. When I read everything that you had to offer, I was so impressed that I couldn't wait to record this episode, Tommy. And I am pretty sure that you are going to teach us so many things today and just blow our minds. So with that, why don't I begin by asking you, what is the concept of alleged credit card debt?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you asked because I need to go a little bit of background so you understand where I'm coming from. I'm an author and a retired teacher, and I wrote a book on health and healing, and I was given a infomercial contract about in the year 2004. So I needed to be on the radio to test different ideas, different strategies that the company wanted to see what was the best way to get a response. And I was put on radio interview shows. And for about 6 months, I lived on 3 credit cards. And it was not a big deal because I was promised to make about $100,000 a month. So this was going to be very lucrative. Oh, yeah. So I didn't mind that at all. So then what happened is one of the talents, he got in trouble with the FTC and making claims about weight loss in his book that wasn't true. So the government came down hard on the company, and me and the other people that were new talents got our contracts canceled. So I was left with $85,000 of credit card debt.
Wow. That's insane.
How can you pay that back? It's just not possible. So I looking at bankruptcy, that just, the amount of stigma and once you do that, it's always on your record. Well, it's only in your credit report. Yes. But if they ever ask you, then you have to say yes, because they can look it up. So you can find that out. Right. So what happened to me is I was on the depressed side. Then one morning I woke up thinking about my dad. He was a CPA, which means a certified public accountant. And I was in school to be a CPA, and my plans were to take over his practice. And I never became one. I dropped out about 2 classes before I finished graduation. And I just had enough of school. It just wasn't for me. But I did the work of a CPA. I've done a lot of different jobs in the accounting world. And so I realized the bank doesn't have an invoice. And that was the first thing. Wait a second. The bank doesn't. I don't have a debt with the bank. And then I had a memory because in the school we were taught the banking laws, and there was the modern money mechanics. There was a manual put out by the Federal Reserve. We read that. That's on page 6. And these are all in your show notes. I'm going to leave with you. So you don't need to believe anything I have to say. I'm a doubting Thomas. So I encourage your audience to doubt me, and you too. And I have 3 links in the show notes that all you do is verify this. But I want you to take this podcast and send it to your CPA. She or he are going to tell you that I'm absolutely 100% correct, but they've never thought of it. So they may never do it, but yes, you can eliminate your alleged credit card debt. So what I did is I figured out from my father-in-law, who was an attorney and a judge, and long conversations about fraud undoes all contracts. So when you get that alleged credit card debt, alleged credit card, you use it, and now you got to conform to the terms and conditions, except if there's fraud. So if there's fraud, there's no contract. So you don't have a contractual agreement with the bank. So I was watching YouTube in early days, and there's a guy bragging about how easy it is to file a federal lawsuit. The judges are so nice to you. They're so accommodating to a pro se litigant. So I'll do it. So I filed 3 separate lawsuits against 3 separate banks in Los Angeles, and things were going pretty good. We had our discovery coming up. And that was the deposition. So I was going to depose a person inside the bank to find out where is this debt and who's got the promissory note and all these kind of things. And obviously the bank didn't want that to happen. So I got called into court by the judge. Now, this is very unusual. Normally the judges, these cases will say, are you getting along with your discovery? Do you need more time? When's the trial? That's the kind of questions. But this judge called me in just by myself. And he said, Mr. Kilpatrick, do you have a credit card? Well, let me explain it from the beginning. We'll get to that later. But do you have a credit card? Well, really, it's a gift card. Pull your card out, Mr. Kilpatrick. So I pulled the card. But right there where it says credit card. So you're telling me you don't have a credit card? He made me look like an idiot. And he said, you're crazy, get out. And so he dismissed all three cases. So now it's like, now I'm going to be sued for 85 plus attorney fees, plus all this stuff. But I looked at my credit report the next month and they were gone off my credit report. I went, how'd that happen? So
Yeah,
I
that's
never
interesting.
paid back an alleged debt that it wasn't a debt, and they never issued me a 1099, which is an IRS form to pay taxes. I never paid taxes. So that's what happened to me. So
Oh, wow. That is interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did you manage the attorney fees and everything while being in debt? And wow, wow. Okay. So when you wrote this book and when you have, like, when you added everything in this, when you were putting down your thoughts and you said, okay, I want a lot of people to know this, what was the most surprising thing that came out of this whole project?
Yeah, it has come to this as a question. I like to ask questions. So, is it possible for you, your audience, and me too, include me, is it possible that we've been lied to, indoctrinated, and brainwashed? Is it possible? Of course.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Sheikha says, absolutely. Yeah. So we know a lie is a lie, but if they tell it over and over and over again, generations, so 60 years of lying to you, you then accept it as truth. But if you don't question it, then you're
Correct.
brainwashed. So what I'm trying to get through to your audience is stop the brainwashing. All you have to do is say the word allege. Okay, it changes everything. Because if the law is language and language is law. So if you go into court and you say, I have credit card debt, you sure do. You've got to pay it. There's no way getting out of it. See? If you
Right.
start using the bank's language, getting out of it implies you're doing something immoral. And there's lots of words. If you use their words, you're sunk, you're lost. You're no way that you can ever win because you're using the language of the criminal. The
Right.
banks have committed a crime. So I'm trying to expose this crime worldwide that they have done. So we use truthful words about what they're doing. So that's why we want to use the word alleged, because we watch the TV and there's a bank robber and we always say alleged bank robber. So that's all we got to say is alleged credit card. Now the bank has the responsibility to prove that there's a debt. See, so when they have all the attorneys, all the judges brainwashed into never questioning this, and that's why I wrote the book, because that scene, I have made it into expanded it because I also had expert witnesses that were CPAs that were going into court with me to explain to the judge, no, it's not a credit card. And so it's a very funny story in my chapter. It really lays out the whole story of what has happened in court and what would happen to you. And we don't want to go to court. There's a way of resolving this whole thing without going to court.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. I would want to read that. I'm definitely going to buy the book now after this. Okay. So, Tommy, I want to ask you this. In today's world, you get things in an instant, Amazon Prime and, so many other things. If I just want to keep my finger on something, I promised that I will get that at my doorstep in 2 days or an hour or 1 day. And with that, I feel certain people tend to succumb to that societal pressures. And in doing that, they put themselves financially in a very bad position and their debt keeps increasing. You're buying a car? Okay, get this. Going to Amazon, you want to buy something huge, get a credit card. Go to Walmart, get a credit card. this, get a credit card. There's so many places that offer credit cards just like that for no reason and with high interest rates. So for a common man who's doing a 9 to 5 job, who has kids, who has family, but also has credit card debt, what is some of the easiest strategy that they could start using to decrease or come out of that loop of buying new credit cards or just increasing that, not being able to pay up that debt?
Well, yes, first thing is our attention span has been so shortened. So I have to kind of have you read the book and go through the funny stories and stuff like that. So we go step by step. So there are legitimate credit cards. Okay. Let's talk about that, because how are we going to differentiate that from an alleged? So if you need tires for your car, you go to a tire store and you tell them, I don't have the money. And they say, oh, what you got to do, Sheekha, is all you got to do is apply for an in-store credit card. And if you're approved, we'll put the tires on. And yes, you're approved. Fantastic. You drive away. At the end of the month, you get a statement. And that's true. You have to pay the invoice. And that's the difference. There's an invoice that shows the date, the tires that were put on your car, the labor that was made to balance the wheel before they put it on. So there's labor, there's goods and services that were all done for you. So you have to pay that because they have an invoice. Right. Here's the question. Did the bank put tires on your car?
No.
No. I mean, did they balance? Did they pay somebody to balance the wheel before they put it on your car? No. So when you ask the bank to prove that there's a debt, you ask them to bring an invoice. If they don't have an invoice, there's no debt. So if you and I engage in some kind of a business transaction and you walk away with something of mine, or I do a service for you, I write you out an invoice. And it says a date, what I did, taxes, shipping, terms and conditions, and all that kind of stuff. So what happened to me is, as I said, I was an accountant, and my very first job when I was 21, I remember very clearly because the CPA was a nice guy, but I didn't know him. He walked into my office and he goes, I'm the CFO. And he points his finger right in my face. He says, if you pay from a statement, I'm going to fire you. And that has always been in my head. So I am a unique individual who had that happen to me and explained to me, look, if you pay from a statement, we could have paid it last week and you don't know that. So you never pay from a statement. Now, it's good to kind of keep track of things. They're going to say, hey, you missed this invoice, and you can track it down. But look over here. See this invoice here? Yeah. Up in the top corner has the department head's okay, approval. You never pay from an unapproved invoice. So we're going to get the invoices. We'll send a department head. They're going to say, yes, this is true. This is all accurate. Pay it. And that's how you are going to be the accounts payable clerk. You pay only from an approved invoice. So all you do is ask, does the bank have an invoice? No. So if we can move from that to the next point. So the bank is playing a game with you. They're playing two sides. One, they say we issued you credit like a store does. Right. And that's how do you know from the difference from a store card and a bank card? Look at the back. At the back of your Walmart, Amazon, those cards, if it says issued by Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of Canada, Bank of England, if it goes anywhere around the world. So this is a worldwide fraud they're pulling on people. Okay. They mailed you a card. Sometimes you didn't even apply for it. And so you were given a gift card. So if I give you something, Sheekha, it's going to be a gift. Now, if I loan you something, we have to have a loan agreement. So banks are only set up for loans. Okay. So if you go into a bank with no money, you want to come out with money, and you're not going to do it with a gun. Okay. You want to do a loan. All right. So let me ask you a question. If you apply for a loan and you're turned down, do you still get the loan? Think about it. I applied for the loan. They say no. Do I still get the loan?
No, you don't get the loan.
No, you don't get the loan. But if they approve you, you go into the bank and you fill out loan documents.
Yes.
And you have to prove that you have an income. Because how are you going to pay this loan back?
Correct.
So if you think about this, if banks did such a thing, they'd be taken to court and a judge would say, you are giving people loans that can't pay them back? That's predatory, right? So it'd be basically against the law. You can't take advantage of people that are so stupid they don't know you have to have an income to pay a loan back. Okay, so they actually force you to prove that you actually have an income and enough income to pay this loan back. You also have collateral, like your house you mentioned, or a car. And if you go for a personal loan, and let's say you put up your yacht for that, well, they legally, the bank, if you don't pay, can take that away from you, sell it legally, get the money. And if it's short, well, that's their problem. If they're long and they made money, they don't get to keep it. They have to give you back. So if you put your yacht up that's worth $1 million and you only borrow 100,000, they can't keep 900,000 or whatever they sell it for, right? So they have to pay you back whatever it was. But you put that piece of property up for collateral. And you think about it. If you buy a share of stock of a bank, you're now a bank owner. So would you want your money loaned out to people who can't pay it back?
No.
That'd be crazy. Would you give money to people who won't promise to pay it back?
Absolutely not.
That's absolutely not. So what the bank does is they look at your credit report, because you have to have some history, and your credit score determines your interest rate. But the last thing you sign is a promissory note. You promise to pay it back. So what I am saying is not some crazy sovereign thing about bills of exchange or something weird. I'm not talking, this is just basic accounting. So anybody who has any bookkeeping experience knows how to pay bills. They're going to have to agree with me that one, the bank does not have an invoice to pay, but they don't have a loan. So this is from my memory of reading the manual, Modern Money Mechanics, and that's in your second link. And it's right there. You look it up on Wikipedia, download the manual. It's right there, the same one I read. And on page 6, it says what banks do is they issue a promissory note and they write numbers into your checking account. It's a free checking account. So that's what the bank is doing to get you as a customer. They're going to do this. All right. Because as a customer, and look it up yourself. I did this 2 months ago and I said, what does the average person have to pay a bank for a credit card? On average, it's $23.04. So if a bank has 1 million card members, they're bringing in 23 million a month. And I did the calculation and it turns out to be 1/4 of their profits. So it's making 1/4 of their money on a criminal enterprise. What's this criminal enterprise? They've got you lied to, indoctrinated, and brainwashed to think that this credit card, is a debt, and you owe it. And what you're doing is you're paying $23.04 on average per month for a free checking account. This is what you have, is a free checking account. So let's run the story by you a little bit. So you apply for a credit card and you're accepted. Great.
Correct.
Or it comes in the mail and you didn't even ask for it. It doesn't matter. So you get this card and it says, if you use the card, you agree to the terms and conditions. But remember, fraud undoes all contracts. And that's in my third link, which applies to the United States, but every country is going to have the same type of thing because the courts in all the world are not set up for criminals to bring their victim to court to extract more money out of them. Okay, so you can't do that. So that's the way fraud undoes all contracts. So this is what the bank does, is they send out these cards to everybody, and it comes in the mail, and I would call it a gift card. If you call it a credit card, you lose. If you call it true, you didn't borrow it, you didn't purchase it, it was given to you. So what'd you do with the card? So in your fourth link that I sent to you, and I share with all your audience, is there's a guy on YouTube, and he says, I made $361 so far. And this is what you do. You find a bank that's offering you to match your deposit, open the account, wait the amount of days they say, and then after that next day, take the money out, close the account, and go to the next one. This is no different than getting you a $500 $1,000, $100,000. Because again, if you sign a promissory note, the bank can write any number they want in your checking account. But if you don't sign a promissory note, there's no loan. Bank issued alleged credit card statement. So from now on, I always say bank issued, because that's the differentiation. You do have to pay the ones that are store that actually did give you their product and they did a service to you and you promised to pay them. They have an invoice. You have to pay them. This is not the way to get out of the debt. But if the bank has given you a credit card, actually it's a gift card. So you got a gift card, you used it, and a statement came in the mail and you've been lied to, indoctrinated, and brainwashed to think that that's a bill and you paid it. Okay? That's okay. You're a good moral person and you think you have a debt and you wrote a $500 check out. Now, here's the question. Is that the first time the bank has ever received your money? Think it through. A gift card comes in the mail, you used it, then a bill comes and you write a $500 check out and mail it to the bank. Is that the first time the bank has ever received? Yeah, that's the first time.
After getting the card, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time the bank has ever received your money. Yeah. Now, this is important because, as I said, banks are only set up for loans. They don't put tires in your car. They don't sell you products and stuff like that. They're in the loan business, and it works both ways. And that's in the first link. Okay. So the banks, when you walk in without any money and you want to come out with money, that's a loan. Right. If you take money and put it into the bank thinking it's a deposit, it's not truly a deposit. You are actually loaning money to the bank. So when you take money and you leave it with the bank, you are loaning the bank money. Now, as you write checks or use your debit card, that obligation of their debt to you goes down, that loan amount, but then you fill it back up. And then you pay it back down and you look, that's what's happening. So when you wrote a $500 check out that went into your free checking account, you filled your checking account up to $500. So if you say credit limit, you're sunk. It's the balance that you pay it up to and put money into your own free checking account. Then every subsequent purchase that you have made has been with your own money.
Yes.
Your own money has purchased everything since then. Yeah. So every month you get a bill, you think it's a bill, you write a check out, you pay it off, and you never pay interest and you never have an annual fee. You're like my mom, who for 40 years never paid a penny. And if you look it up, about 12% of the people that have a credit card, see, a bank issued alleged credit card, when they've got one of those, only about 12% pay nothing. So that's how business works. So 78% of people are paying on average $23.04 for a free checking account. So that's pretty much a picture story that you can understand of what's going on.
Yeah, this is eye-opening, Tommy. I never thought of it this way. I always thought, that's what they teach us since childhood, right? Okay, credit card is bad debt and, debt is bad. But I realized, especially after moving to the US, that was another big thing, is that somehow if you don't have a credit score or if you don't show that you're maintaining good credit cards, I found it very surprising is that, okay, you're saying debt is bad, but then you don't let me pay anything off. You want me to buy more stuff. You want me to get more loans. And it's that cycle that's so hard to come off of. But now when you think of it from this perspective, it's eye-opening. Wow. I have to ask you though, how did your mom manage to do that?
She was having a husband as a CPA. She always made sure that she wrote the check out. And this is what the banks will do sometimes, is they will make the date a day sooner. And you don't realize it until maybe 4 or 6 months or maybe a year later, they've actually moved the date, which is normally, let's say the 20th is when it was due, to the 15th.
Right.
So you've in your mind thought I pay on the 20th, but they will do tricks like that to break the date a little bit sooner. You don't get used to it. And then they got you. There's a late fee, and all of a sudden that zero interest rate jumps to 29%. So that's, again, interest paid on your own free checking account. And what they're doing is if you don't deposit enough money, then they're going to charge you interest. And that's what the motivation is to pay your credit card bill every month. But it's not a bill. It's just a statement. So you don't have to pay it. So it's that simple. Well, I did that for about 1,000 people over about a 10-year period of time. And then some of the larger amounts they would push back on. So they would actually file a lawsuit. Okay. Most of my clients would do it themselves. I showed them how simple it was to file it and nothing ever a problem. Okay. They got it wiped off their credit report. Never a problem. It's the ones that wouldn't agree to do it themselves. They said, I can't do that. I have to have an attorney. Attorneys are only for two kinds of people, infants and imbeciles. And I'm not trying to
love it
to call your listeners names. I'm just saying, so when someone represents you in court, they only represent infants who can't speak for themselves and imbeciles, people who don't have enough knowledge or ability to think. They have to have someone speak for them. Court was never set up for an intelligent person who knows what's going on to do that. I know they scare you with a procedure, and it's very simple to study this all, but you don't really want to go to court. What we do is we send the bank a letter asking them to close the account. For that weakness, that can work for most people, okay? But for the higher amounts, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200,000, now you need a little bit more evidence. So what you do is you had your CPA write a letter to the bank saying, first of all, there is no invoice, so you don't have a debt. 2, you didn't follow federal banking laws and you didn't get a promissory note. So there never was a loan. So here you, who have no knowledge of anything, let's say, to have an expert CPA witness who will go to court and tell the judge, tell the opposing attorney, and tell the bank that there is no invoice. If you have an invoice, then bring it. We want to see banks selling tires. We want to see them doing the plumbing work. They came out to your house, they did plumbing work. And so that's a service. Okay, then there's an invoice, we'll pay. But if there's no invoice, there's no payment. And if you didn't promise to pay it back, how does the whole thing happen? It was to get you as a customer. So they lied to you, indoctrinated, and brainwashed you to think that you have to do this, and you really don't. Shield, and it's kind of like prepaid legal. And so you pay $29 and you get an attorney for a month. That's all you need is one attorney, one letter that says fraud undoes all contracts. CPA, who will be my expert witness in court, if you take me to court, he's going to testify and tell the judge and the jury, we'll ask for a jury trial, of course, all that kind of stuff, but we'll be saying that where's the invoice and where's the promissory note. And then what they do is you need to have that. Then what's the best part is the whole lawsuit. It's the lawsuit I filed in federal court. It lays out all of the crimes the bank has committed. The bank does not want this published. They don't want this into the court record because then anybody can look at this and do it themselves. Everybody would be doing it. Fantastic. Because there's not $1.3 trillion of credit card debt. There's $1.3 trillion the bank wants you to deposit. They want you to bring $1.3 trillion back into their bank. Now, normally you file a lawsuit. Months later, you do the discovery. No, you're going to send everything to the bank all at once. Okay. So even though you don't file it, you don't spend any money with a court. You don't have a docket number, but it looks like a lawsuit. Okay. In there, you're going to be asking for production of documents, interrogatories, which are questions, and admissions. The best part is a deposition. You're already telling them on a certain date and give them a couple more choices. So we give them 3 choices. That's what you normally do. And when you go back and forth, the attorney, you at least give them 3 dates, but it's 10 days after your anticipated response. So they have 10 days after they respond to then finally first do a discovery, which is a deposition. They don't want any of their employees. How are they going to have an employee swear on a Bible with the penalty of perjury, which means fines and imprisonment? And they're going to have one employee say you have a debt and they actually have the evidence? Come on now. So that's where you're going to have the deposition. But here's the best part. The injunction. We've heard a lot about this in the last few months. When President Trump does anything, someone runs to court and says, stop, with an injunction. And what happens? Everything puts on the brakes, right? We've
Correct.
learned that injunction stops it, but then the judge has to wait to see if there's any evidence. If
Right.
there's evidence, well, then we keep going forward. If there's no evidence, then throw it out. So that's why you have some injunctions thrown out and some that are continuing because the judge hasn't seen the evidence yet. So the bank is going to receive this notice that they are going to have, you are going to file an injunction the minute they file a lawsuit against you or the minute you file a lawsuit against them. Once they respond, then you file an injunction. Notify the defendant, the bank, that they have to bring to court a outstanding unpaid invoice, and they also have to bring a certified copy of the promissory note. And we're also asking for an affidavit of debt. Someone in the bank, a live person, has to swear out on penalty of perjury that you have a debt and they have the evidence of such a debt. And that has to be brought to court within 30 days. And if they don't bring it to the judge will find them in contempt of court. And it stops everything. So they can't go forward. So bottom line, what do you want at the bottom of your letter is one click. Click this off my credit report and don't issue me a 1099-C. Now, in my original lawsuit, I said that if you file that 1099-C, I'm going to file a 3949-A. My dad being a CPA, I was brought up with the IRS as part of my DNA from my dad being a CPA. So I know these numbers because I've used them all the time. So that's the thing that will stop them. So I have it all wrapped up, and that's what we do. What I'm looking for is a client. The best client for me is I do offer a free consultation. So anybody on the world, I'd be happy to talk to them, and I will give you my $69 book for free if you just ask for the consultation. You got to think about this. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not a genius. I'm just an accountant who knows how to count. And I have a memory of that manual, Modern Money Mechanics.
Oh, this has been eye-opening and excellent, Tommy. I am so thankful, and I just want to say I appreciate you taking out time and giving us all this valuable information. And I have to actually compliment you, Tommy. You explain such complicated terms so easily. You're awesome at what you do. It clearly shows. So congratulations. And I'm grateful that you came to our show and shared your knowledge with us and all the tips and suggestions with us, Tommy. Thank you so much for being on our show.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. To all those of you who loved finance, I hope you learned a thing or two. You know what you got to do? Hit the subscribe button. As always, don't forget, keep growing, keep glowing, and be yourself. This is your host, Sheekha Singh, signing off. Bye.